All right, and welcome everyone. Of course, you guys know who I am. I'm Lynn the Oreo. Yeah, that's a name change because reasons, but
hmm
I'm here with one of my good friends, the fabulous Lapis. Lapis, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fabulously. Um, it's been a great week. It's been a great day, but it's always a great day when I get to talk to you.
That's good. That's good. Also, yeah, we haven't really talked in a while. I know, that we did a chat on your channel. I think it was like about almost a year ago, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a while. It's always fun talking to you.
hmm
Um, but anyway, today, the topic that we're talking about, as you all know, for the past few months, there have been protests raging across the country, um, over police brutality towards Black people. And today, me and Lapis will be discussing that. More specifically, we'll be discussing the successes and failures of the summer of ACAB. I think Lapis came up with that. That's actually a good name for it.
hmm I don't know. Like I'll credit other people. It wasn't completely my idea, but um, I do think it's incredibly fitting. Like it just fits in so well with the summer of discontent, but
hmm
specifically the discontent this time is aimed at the institution of policing.
Right, right. So I guess how we can start this off is basically like asking a question like do you think that these protests are like they've been building up to the point that they are now, or do you think that just like came out of nowhere?
I definitely believe that they've been building up for a long time. Um, I think that, we can trace their origin not just to the rise of BLM. I think they
hmm
actually started with the Rodney King riots.
Yeah. Um, I even would argue before that, like,
Mm.
I don't. Oh my God, I hope I'm not like giving the wrong history here, but the L.A. Watts riots. Oh God, I've like I guess to stay on the safe side, we can say Rodney King, but I know like these emotions within the Black community, and when we're talking about like police brutality and like dealing with the police and some of the racial undertones of policing, it does go like it's been way beyond like BLM, Rodney King. Like it's like you said, it's been building up over time, and now it's like this, I guess, explosion of just like frustration and anger, and
hmm
it kind of points back to like what Martin Luther King said when he said riots are language of the unheard. And the funny thing is I think when people looking on the outside, who don't understand, oh, why are these protests turning into riots, it's like, well, you got to understand, like, riots
People have
are
been
language of
trying,
the unheard.
hmm
Right.
and people have been trying peacefully for decades, and it got them
Yeah, yeah.
nowhere.
Like
So
yeah, you can. I mean, like some people point to like body cams, and I'm like, okay, that's one step, but it's like that's not the end all be all to like policing. Like there have been police officers who like they don't even have their body cams on when they're going
mhm.
through procedures.
Just mysteriously, oh no, what a shame it turned off. Who could have foreseen this? What a terrible accident. Now we'll never know.
Like, oh yeah, you guys have witnesses, but like you don't see me on camera doing it, so I guess we'll never know what happened. It kind of reminds me of the Tootsie Pop commercial with like the fucking owl, and he's like, how many how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop roll? Let's see. I know. One, two, three. Then you take the bite, and the announcer's like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know. that's that's what that reminded me of.
That's so funny. And by the way, I checked it earlier. You are right. The 1965 Watts Rebellion
Yes,
um,
I knew it.
was another flashpoint where like this black motorist got pulled over for reckless
hmm
driving, aka just driving while black. And then, you know,
Yeah, yeah. It's been like just building up to this point where we are now, where we're seeing people just like like I don't think we ever seen like a protest like this before. I mean, most people would say Ferguson, but like no, Ferguson. While Ferguson was big in my opinion, it's not
Hmm.
as big as this. Like this is one where like even conservatives, like the most conservative of conservatives, are like, yeah, what happened to George Floyd was wrong, and
Exactly. And I was shocked because I genuinely thought that, they'd be like, oh, well, um, actually, he was afraid for his life, um, it really does seem that the only people who are taking George Floyd's side in this, or not George Floyd, but the officer who killed him's side in this, are the police officers in the Minneapolis Police Department who
oh yeah,
they were like standing outside in front of his house. And that is, I think very telling. And it's why there is no longer a Minneapolis Police Department.
yeah. Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Because recently there have been two ideas coming up like in the discourse
Yeah.
about what do we do with police. There's reform the police and then there's abolish the police.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like I feel like people when they hear these terms, they don't quite understand it. So then they go into like this sort of happy place in their mind where they're like, oh no, the police are fine. Everything's good. You're not gonna
Yeah.
reform it, you're
Think
not gonna
happy
abolish
thoughts. Think happy thoughts.
it.
I
And it's
think.
like, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was kind of curious to hear what you had to say.
Oh, well, the thing about it is like, when we say reform the police, it's more so like, because I think like the common thing about reforming the police is like, oh yeah, let's reallocate the funds that the police get into like community services. And when it comes to abolishing the police, it doesn't necessarily mean get rid of them. I kind of think that it means like minimizing the police's role in like certain situations. So like,
Hmm.
for example, if we have a person who is under mental distress, right? Would you trust a person with a gun, a loaded gun, to go and check on them and like calm them down and make sure that they're okay? Like, oh yeah, sir, are you okay? Like the dude's just like upset, he's angry, he, she, or they, or any of the pronouns. Um, they're angry, they're frustrated,
Yeah.
and the officer's trying to figure out what they're doing, and like the officer's like has their hand on their gun because they don't know what's gonna happen. The person is upset, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and next
Mm-hmm.
thing you know, the person might do an action that makes the officer flip out, and boom,
Yeah,
they get
because
shot.
police officers are some of the most cowardly creatures that walk this earth. They're even intimidated by dogs. Anything can set them off. Like they even shot this guy who was like, he was literally with this disabled guy and he was like literally hands behind his back, lying down on the middle, in the middle of a plaza,
Mhm.
obviously no arms, but he still got shot because, they feared for their life.
Yeah, it's like it's a common excuse for what happens. Like, oh yeah, we were fearing for our lives. And would you say that that has to do with like the level of training that officers get? Because when you look up like the average time that an officer gets in a police academy here in the United States, it's no more than 5 months.
Hmm.
Like, how
Well,
can I trust a person who's had 5 months, like 5 months of training on like I guess like enforcing the law?
mhm.
How am I supposed to like trust them with 5 months of experience when like they go out in the street and say if I'm like in a situation where I can't really describe a situation, but let's just say like I get pulled over, right? Am I supposed to trust the officer who has only had 5 months of experience and doesn't know like how I guess like how to work with people, how to work with like certain
Yeah.
I guess like how to work with people of like different backgrounds. So I was watching this streamer, and he was talking about like how police officers might not understand like certain terms that like say black people or Hispanic slash Latino people would use. So like
Mhm.
they might not understand the way we communicate,
Yeah.
because like if you have like it was kind of funny. He was like, say if you got Billy, this like white officer, he's just out of the academy, and like he's in a black neighborhood and he doesn't quite understand, like if a black person says like if the officer says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" and he's like, "Bruh," and he says it like that, the officer might get scared and he's like, well,
Oh,
he's just expressing his frustrations. Like like the person getting pulled over is just expressing their frustrations. They're not being threatening. They're just like, dude,
yeah,
why did you pull me over? Like,
because they have to deal with so many instances of being pulled over for basically no reason, of just pulled over just for like existing.
yeah. Also, I have seen some people suggest that police should get longer training and also more training with like situational training in terms of
Hmm.
that aspect. But the
Hmm.
question is do we reform the police or do we abolish them? Because in my opinion, I feel that the police they're at the point where it's already been a problem. So as we
Yeah.
know, the police basically they do have a racial undertone because their origins do come from slave patrols,
Yeah.
bringing back runaway slaves. And I think like most people, they look at slavery and they're like, oh yeah, it's in the past. That happened hundreds of years ago. But really, it still has a big impact on the United States.
Hmm.
Even so, like with Jim Crow, like that even, um, sp- oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for? Spawned out of the, I guess you could say like the underbelly of like slavery and this idea that
It's
black
how can we
people.
preserve the racial hierarchy of slavery now that it
Right,
no longer exists as an economic relation?
right, right, and also when you look at like some of the police departments, like there is a number of white nationalists and white supremacists within the police ranks, which only further inspires like this racial like undertone when it comes to policing. And it's like, well, how do you deal with that? Um,
Hmm.
like that's scary. That's a scary thing to think about. And I actually remember this one person said the reason why you don't see um the police like doing what they do at like like the reason why you don't see the police like attacking like Klan rallies or Nazi gatherings like they do like Black Lives Matter, it's the same reason why you don't see Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus sitting in the same room. That was deep. That was,
Oh,
and I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like there are a number of white supremacists, white nationalists within the police. So it's like, how can you win, really?
yeah. My personal feeling is that since the US policing and, well, policing in general, but
Hmm.
especially in America where it's so tied to, um, you know, its origins as, night patrols to catch runaway slaves. And since it seems so ingrained, like in Minneapolis, they
Hmm.
had all of those 8 reforms that people are constantly after. They had more training, they had body
Hmm.
cams, they had racial bias training, all of these sorts of things. They had them. But it didn't stop one of the most egregious cases of police brutality not only happening in Minneapolis, but
Hmm.
the entire department becoming so obsessed with defending this guy that they literally risk their jobs over, having a racist and his 2 accomplices be held to account.
Yeah, I think that case of like where you said the police were just defending this man, the officer, it kind of shows like I guess you can say the camaraderie or the like familial like nature of the police, like
The
which is
dark
like,
fraternity.
yeah, like it's a fraternity, and it's like it's even bolstered through like police unions. Like I've seen people state police unions are also a big issue because I support unions because I think that unions they do give the workers power. They do give the workers a voice. The problem is that with police unions, the police already have power. Like they already have like the authority over the average citizen because they've been
Yeah.
given this like role to serve and protect. So it's like giving them a union, it just bolsters that authority. So we've seen cases where like with the police where you got this reform in place, right? Like say racial bias training, and citizens are asking for like the I guess the local government to like instill that within the police department, the police union could come along and say, well, we don't like that. No, we don't like that. We don't want to do that. And they
Mm-hmm.
have this like sense of authority and power. So
Yeah,
then
and everyone just bows to them immediately.
right.
And also, like, the police unions are not the only institution that is a problem. I also think it's the district attorneys. They are really letting the slack. They're really not picking up the slack, rather, of police brutality instances in America. Like, do you remember Amy Klobuchar?
Oh God.
Well, she was the district attorney in Minneapolis who got Derek
Oh yeah.
Chauvin, the guy who murdered George Floyd, off for killing another guy. He killed an Indigenous man back in 2006.
I think he
And
had like
Amy
what, 12
Klobuchar's like, no, it's fine. They all make mistakes.
I mean, it's not a okay, if it's like, okay, doing something one time, okay, sure, we can write that off as a mistake. When it's happened more than one times, I think he has like something like what, like 9 or 12 cases of like police brutality on his fucking file. Like,
two of them
that's
that
not
have
a
ended in
mistake.
death. Like, this guy is a menace.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so telling that rather than give an inch, the Minneapolis Police Department would rather radicalize itself until it became such a noxious institution that it actually got abolished.
Yeah. I just kind of find that funny. Like, do you think that like the police, well, I got two questions. Like, so the first one is like, do you think like police officers, like, do you think that they have this like sort of sense of like, I guess, I'm the protector, I'm the hero, mainly because of what society puts on them? So like with the whole to serve and protect sort of motto, and like they're given that role, like, yeah, you're supposed to serve the people, you're supposed to protect them. Do you think like that kind of plays into like why they might have such an aggressive nature towards like the average citizen?
I think it definitely does, even though legally they do not have an obligation to protect and serve, as the Supreme Court decided when this woman's like, hey, I told these police in Arizona about my abusive husband multiple times and they did nothing. Obviously, they're not protecting and serving me. And the Supreme Court decided, I think it was 7-2. You know what? I don't really think police officers have a right to protect and serve. It doesn't seem like an obligation of their job. Which is disturbing.
Yeah, it is.
But I do agree. I think and it's not just police officers that have this mentality. I think, the cop shows, the media, they sell it to people that the police are a benevolent institution that are protecting people and keeping them safe from the bad guys. And the bad guys are usually coded in some ways like, oh yeah, they're people of color, they're queer, they're some form of other that we need to keep society safe from.
Right. Oh my God, I actually forgot the quote, but I think I can kind of like spell the gist of it. Basically, it's like the police, yeah, they're basically taught like, okay, listen, you're the good guy, okay? You're supposed to be like the protector, you're supposed to be like the angel. But the problem is like, how can you protect the people that you also see as enemies? Like, how can you do that? How can you have like both of these things exist? Like, okay, yeah, we're protecting people, but also we will beat and shoot the everlasting shit out of you if you get out of line. And it's like, how can you have both of those ideas at the same time?
Exactly. You can't. It's, it's it doesn't work. You can't be a protector and a killer.
Right. Oh yeah, wait, did you want to?
Well, another thing I think that's really wrong, and this is much more specific to American police. Granted, like maybe later on in this call we can talk about Canadian police because they suck.
Yeah,
as
I would
well.
like this.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be the white Canadian that comes in here. Well, racism doesn't exist in Canada, you guys. I hate that. But this is something that American police in particular get. And it's that they get weapons that are discarded by the military, because the military is a bloated, overfunded institution that basically functions the same way America's police do, but for the entire world, or for the rest of the world. And American police institutions, they'll get military gear when the military is just done with it. You know, they're like, okay, we don't really need this submachine gun anymore. We don't really need this tank. Hey, police, do you want this? Does the NYPD need another tank? And the NYPD is like, sure, we could use another armored car.
Right. I think it's kind of funny because like most people, they kind of look at like the Russian police. I don't know if you've seen those videos where like they have like literal like fucking like big ass armored vehicles that have like machine guns mounted on them, and they're like raiding someone's house, and like there's a big ass tank out there. But it's like, no, the same thing is happening here. Like it's we like the police are fucking militarized. The whole riot gear and riot shields and tear gas, which is actually I think it's banned under the Geneva Convention because of how dangerous
it is. Illegal to use it.
Yeah.
In military conditions, but it is still allowed to be used for some reason, for some bizarre reason, against civilians.
Yeah, and then we got the rubber bullets, which come on, they're not even rubber. They're just like, I think rubber
metal
bullets
with like a thin coating of rubber over them.
Yeah.
It's more accurate just to call them 40mm bullets. They're big bullets.
They are. They kind of this might sound funny, but they kind of remind me of Bullet Bill from Mario. Just the way they
You know, they remind me of those weird like shark bullets that will move towards Mario, and then he has to jump on top of them to go over the chasm.
Yeah. Also, I think that's another issue that people have been pointing towards to like abolish the police, is like the militarization of the police force, because it's like, yeah, they kind of are in a sense like an army. Like they do get these weapons from the military, and not just weapons, but equipment, vehicles, like you said. And it's like, if they can use this against us, then like I just think that you have to tear the system down and like rebuild it from the ground up, or tear the system down and create something new from it. Plant like it's like chopping down a old rotten tree and planting a new one in its place. And
yeah, because we can't just keep like, oh no, don't worry, next year the rotten tree will get better. Next year we'll start having leaves again.
Right.
I mean, it's been dead for 100 years, but it will grow back. Trust me.
There's only a few rotten apples. There's only a few bad apples. It's like, what happens to the rest of the bunch when there's one bad apple? It's like the rest of the bunch gets rotten. It's like,
if they don't remove it, and they never do. Instead, they usually remove the one good apple that tries to raise an issue here.
Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing I kind of want to get into, is like, a lot of people are like, well, there's good cops. And it's like, well, what happens to them? They're like, they either end up dead, they end up fired, or they end up getting ridiculed most of the time.
Yeah, or put in like a mental institution, like that poor one guy who tried to reform the NYPD.
Oh god. There's actually just one story, and it kind of actually because like I want to get back into writing, so it kind of inspires like a story I'm working on. But there was this female cop in Chicago. I think it was in like the 90s, and she and like I guess one of her like I guess you could say comrades, I don't know, but she and like one of her fellow officers, he was, this might surprise you, but he was black and he was doing this. So basically what he was doing was he would actually distribute drugs within the black community, and I think I'm not sure if it was also in the Hispanic community or not, but I think it was mainly in the black community. And he would sell them drugs, and then he would arrest them and send them to jail for dealing drugs and abusing drugs that he sold. And when she found out about it, the way she found out about it was she was arresting I think a drug dealer, and he was like, why don't you arrest and he said the officer's name. He was like, why don't you arrest him? He's the one selling drugs to us. And she was surprised. She was shocked, and she looked into it, and she found the truth, and she told her superiors, and guess what happened to her? She got fired. She got fired for telling like her superiors that, hey, he's not doing what I think we're supposed to be doing. Like I think he's on the wrong side.
He's crooked.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
I think
the
he did end up
police,
in prison.
the institutions are always on the side of these crooked cops.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't actually surprise me. Like, there was that whole ring of people in Baltimore, in the Baltimore Police Department, where they were actually like just awful. And this awful crooked group that would plant false evidence and then use it as an excuse to arrest people and confiscate their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a good chunk of them were Black people as well, even though their targets were other Black people. And I think that's why I am very distrustful of hire more Black police officers.
Oh my God, I hate that. I hate that so much. I hate it because it doesn't do anything. Like, I can kind of see why some people think it, because it's like, okay, if you're from a minority group, you kind of know what it's like to be like under the thumb of, like, I guess, authority. Yeah. So if you go into that authority role, you're not going to be as bad as like the people currently there.
You're going to have empathy because it's from your experiences. You felt oppressed too. Right. So like, not to be racist.
Right. And it's like, but it doesn't work like that, because I think there have even been studies that have shown like Black officers are more aggressive with like Black suspects than to some degree more than white officers are. It's like, there goes your let's hire more Black officers.
Well, here's the thing with Black officers. One hand, they have to prove to all the other awful racist white officers, hey, no, I'm one of the good ones. I'm a good one. I see the problems in my community just like you. I'm willing to fight against it just like you. Please don't target me. And I think that defensive reaction can lead to them just being just as racist as the white officers.
Yeah, there's this whole concept called intra-racism, where it's just basically racism between minority groups or even within minority groups. And yeah, you do see it a lot with Black people. I've even experienced it firsthand. Like with my mom. Might be getting a little personal here, but me and her, sometimes we kind of get into talks about like Black people.
Yeah.
Well, we're Black, but I remember this one time where she was talking about like crime, and me and her, we had this long conversation about it, and she was like, I just don't understand like why it happens, and like why are there gangs, and like why are Black people killing other Black people? And I'm like, it's because like we're not given opportunities. Like, if you live in a situation where all around you is nothing but poverty, what happens? In areas with poverty, there's low unemployment, and with areas with low unemployment, there's crime. And they feel like the only way that they can move up the, I guess, socioeconomic ladder is by doing criminal activity. And I think that's actually like a thing that people notice. It's like it's easier to move up the corporate ladder by doing crime rather than going about it the legal way. Like it's always noted.
Yeah, but like, that's white collar crime, and that's good and fine. And we can, we can get a slap on the wrist and a good scolding, but that can get swept under the rugs. But oh no, selling drugs, how could you? That's the worst thing you could do ever.
That's just a load of bullshit. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like it's also like I think this also plays into policing too, the war on drugs. How like with the war on drugs, like over time, you do see like the correlation of like police militarization and like police aggressiveness towards like I guess you could say communities of color. So when we're talking about like, oh yeah, why are like, and I kind of think this kind of plays into, because it's like everything's so connected, right? Everything's like interconnected within society. It's like a big web. Like oh yeah, why are there not as many Black fathers? And it's like, well, the war on drugs. And
also, so many of them are in jail, and then they get criminal records. And then by the time that they are out of jail, the woman has moved on, or she's dead, or she's in a different city because it was too expensive to live where she used to be.
And I also think the prison system plays into policing too, because it's like oh boy, like the prison system is something. I love the fact that like many Americans, they look at the prison system and they're like, well, yeah, it's supposed to help the prisoner become a better person. I'm like, that might be the intention, but it doesn't do that. Like,
If anything, it does the opposite.
yeah, it makes them a better criminal. Like if you look at the recidivism rates, I think it's like after 5 years, I think it was like 75% of prisoners go back within 5 years of being released. And it's like, you don't give them like any job opportunities. I mean, they're
Mhm.
lucky if they even find the job, if they even
I
get
know,
one.
because a criminal record in our society, it punishes you. Like, this is absolutely the worst way to get people to stop being criminals. It's like,
Yeah,
if you have a criminal record, you shouldn't be able
you
to
can't
find much good
vote.
work. The only instance where I think a criminal record, or one of the only instances, if it's something like, oh, you were a pedophile, yeah, you should probably not be around kids. You should not be allowed to be around kids.
Yeah, yeah.
But if it's something like, oh, you sold drugs, well, that means you shouldn't be able to find work ever.
Like that's the worst way to go about like fixing someone. Like, I mean, okay, say if you like want to make a prisoner a better person,
Mm-hmm.
you don't release them, and then when they're released, they're like, oh yeah, yeah, you can't get a job, you can't vote, you can't do this and that. And then to them, it's like, well, what's the point? And like, what's the fucking point of me going to prison? And like everybody's like, oh yeah, you know, it's gonna change your life. It gives you a whole new perspective. Like you won't do crime again. You learned your lesson. And it's like, well, no, you're not giving them opportunities. This is the reason why they do it again.
And
And
that's not even getting into like private prisons
oh
that are
yeah,
designed to
yeah.
keep people inside and doing labor
Mm-hmm.
for $2 an hour. And like California's like, oh yeah, actual police are too expensive. Let's use the prisoner department to fight our forest fires.
Yeah.
Getting
For like what, like a few
$1.50 an
cents or
hour.
a dollar? Yeah. Uh, sometimes even for free. If I were a prisoner, I'm like, dude, you're not making me fight a big ass fire for like a 50 cents. You're gonna have to pay me at least
Pay
like
me a
at least
living wage,
an
or
hour.
we're not
Yeah.
doing it. Like ban police unions, legalize prisoner unions. I believe it should definitely be a thing.
Yeah. What was something I wanted to talk about? Do you have anything you want to talk about? Because I can't really think of anything right now.
Mm. Well, let's just go over like some of the good things that have come out
Mm-hmm.
of the BLM protests, and maybe like what would our reform or abolished, what would a future after all of our suggestions are enacted look like in terms of the policing world?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So this is something I honestly thought liberals were going to do when the protests started, and I am so glad that they didn't. But Donald Trump has decided that now it's a good time to bring up this tactic. I really think that he did it a bit too late for it to be effective, but he started to blame the new case, you know, the new rise in coronavirus cases on the BLM protests.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
wait. I'm gonna add that. Yeah. And it's like when you look at like actually what's happening, it's like the protesters are wearing masks. They do try to stay like 6 feet apart.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's having rallies in places like Arizona, which is like the biggest coronavirus hotspot in America right now. And yet he's holding a rally in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And he's refusing to abide by the masking laws there.
Even with like, because I know he did a rally in Tulsa, and it was like after the rally, like there were like new cases just springing up like wildfire, and it's like, oh my god, like he, to be honest, like this whole COVID situation, he didn't take it seriously right from the jump. I actually expected that to happen, because I know my mom was like, I don't know, I feel like she has just a little faith in him, and I'm like, man, my faith has withered away. Like he's not doing shit. Like,
yeah,
I told her, I was like, she was like, well, hopefully he does something. I'm like, Mom, he's not gonna do anything. Like he's just gonna.
I was hopeful like that maybe in spite of Trump, something could have happened when people got like $10,000, like $1,000. I'm like, oh, that is a big step up for America, because normally they're like, no handouts ever.
Pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Exactly. even in completely absurd situations like this virus literally prevents you from working. Still, pull yourself up by your bootstraps somehow. You figure it out. That's a you problem. But and then, you know, after that, there was no more real attempts to pass more stimuluses after May, even though the virus has begun to rise again because of the premature reopening. Like some of these states, like Georgia, was reopening in late April.
And they were like, didn't they open up it's a like big ass mall? And, like they reopened it, and like there were a lot of people there, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
And like, you know how bad Georgia is? They literally made it illegal for cities to require people to wear masks in buildings.
Oh, wait, illegal?
Like illegal. I am not joking. It is against the law, and now they are suing the government of Atlanta because they went against that.
Wow. Yeah, these the premature reopenings, it's like people just feel like they're frustrated, and they're like, yeah, I want to get back to work. Yeah, we need to like get back to like making the economy like better, like where it was. And it's like, well, shit, you're risking like a lot of people getting sick and dying. Like we already have like a shit ton of cases and a shit ton of deaths, and it's like it's already terrible. Now you're reopening in like the midst, like not even like, because the virus hasn't even died off yet. Like it's probably going to take to like, in my opinion, I think by the end of the year we might see cases go down, hopefully.
But then they'll be like, we need to reopen again. And then they'll make the same mistake. I'm so worried that people just don't have the patience. They are used to living in a society where the thing that matters most is the customer. The customer is always right. And they hate living in a world where they have to take some sort of social responsibility and socially distance. That's the unsympathetic interpretation. The sympathetic one is people need jobs, and the American government is not, you know, filling in the cracks where a proper welfare state would. Whereas so that people who don't have work, who need a stimulus spending in order to properly social distance, they're not giving it because of some sort of ideological frustration with, oh no, but it would be a handout.
Right.
And so people need to work and they need to live. So they're like, yes, please reopen, please, so I can get a job. I think it's a combination of both. But honestly, I lean more towards, these are just a lot of the times when I see like those protesters in Michigan. Yeah, I just thought, oh, you guys are really entitled. You really think that, you know, I need a haircut. I'm sorry, that's not a good reason to stop taking a pandemic seriously.
Right.
Boo-hoo. That's such a first world problem. Give yourself a haircut.
Right. That's actually something that I've seen a lot of people like kind of advocate for, is like start doing things that you would usually pay for that you can do yourself. Like just start learning them. Yeah, I think that's something that, you know, we can advocate more for. I guess because like America does have this sort of sense of like self-reliance and self-responsibility and like taking care of yourself. And it's like, well, isn't that the first step? Like,
yeah, like maybe like actually taking care of yourself instead of paying other people to do it for you. Maybe that's the way you can live those values and turn them into something good, instead of it being the toxic, no, poor people deserve to die because I'm too selfish to support welfare.
Another thing, I guess, like another positive that came from this is really the media kind of showing like some things that not only happens to protesters, but really what happens to them too. Because during the protest, there were like reporters getting shot at with rubber bullets. They were getting tear gas. There was even the case with the CNN reporter who got arrested, him and his crew, and people started noticing like, oh shit, wow, there are some racial undertones here.
Especially because, you know, the one reporter who got arrested was a Black man. But I just like, I really think that that's in part like Trump's role. Like he does have a lot of anti-media rhetoric. And while I'm not really a fan of the media, I like the concept of the media. I do
Mhm.
not like how it is executed. Like, I like the
Right, right.
concept of journalism. I don't like how it is often like, oh, well, a lot of these news networks are just owned by like the super rich, aren't they? And they just advertise for the policies that the super rich want. That's not really very useful in holding
Right,
power to
right.
account. But the way Trump talks about the media as if they were like some sort of enemy nation that America needs to fear and attack.
Right. Then like I still remember when he called them the enemy of the people, and I was like, all right, like I can get why people don't like the media, but like they're not really the enemy of the people. Like you're going a bit too far there, man.
I mean, he kind of is, honestly.
Yeah. But also I do like, I think another positive is I think the one big positive is like in Minneapolis where that police station got taken over. I was like, oh shit, they actually did it.
It was beautiful.
But let's also talk about I don't, because this is like something that people are kind of like conflicted on as whether it's a positive or negative. Chop slash Chaz. Um
Oh, you mean the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone?
mhm.
That was, I think it was taken down.
Yeah, it was in Seattle, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think it recently got taken down.
I liked the idea. I didn't really like the execution.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think like the issue was a lot of the people in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone kind of like radicalized themselves out of political relevance. And they let their frustration be, oh, the liberals are the problem. We hate them. And so they made themselves obnoxious to the people who are actually living in Capitol Hill.
Hmm.
I don't really know why they would do that, but they decided to. And, you know, like predictably, if you're going to be building an autonomous zone, you're going to need the support of people living there.
Right.
Um,
It's like, yeah, sometimes, it's kind of the whole concept of like sometimes you got to work with people that you don't like. So it's
mhm.
like, yeah, you can say like, oh shit, yeah, it's the liberals, it's the liberals. There's like at some point you're going to have to work with that side. Like you're gonna have to like I guess meet them and try to like
Yeah, it's not
see
like,
eye to
you
eye.
know, okay, everyone, before we march against this police brutality incident, I just want to make sure, are all of you socialists?
And it's
Like,
like,
it's so absurd.
are you guys all communists?
Yeah.
I don't want to march with a commie. Ew.
Oh, it's so bad. Like,
And
what
it's like,
on.
no, that's how you turn people away. That's not how you like unify people. No.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I liked about this moment is that we were seeing people, you know, from the center left to even the center to the far left, kind of like coming together and saying, you know what, I'm sick of this. And we may have different solutions to the problems of police brutality in America, but we are willing to work and fight together because if we don't, we are going to get overrun by a violent mob of
Yeah.
police officers.
And then also like if you don't, then you'll still get the same result. And then there's gonna be another case of a person of color getting killed by a police officer, and then this whole thing happens again.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of the school shooting cycle. How like after like a mass shooting or like a school shooting, oh yeah, let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it. And you got all these protests, and you got all these conversations happening, and then nothing really happens. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
Nothing comes from it.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, like the far left has this weird thing on guns where they kind of agree with the right, like, yeah, we shouldn't really do anything about mass shootings, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
which I have mixed feeling towards. I mean, on one
Mhm.
hand, yeah, I do think that there needs to be some kind of armed resistance right now because clearly the far right has weapons. Clearly,
Yeah,
we need
and
to
Trump
counter
even
that in some
inspired them.
way. And he's literally letting like these people are being stuffed into unmarked vans without
Mhm.
really having to provide any sort of proper identification. They're basically just roaming militias of far rightists with guns who think that they have an entitlement to shoot people if they, you know, threaten property.
Right,
Um,
right.
that needs to be resisted in some way. However, I think that it is the system of lax gun control that let these far right militias exist in the first place. Because, like, there have been Black Lives Matter protests in Canada as well.
Yeah,
And although our police suck, don't get me wrong, they suck. They do use tear gas and they do use 40 millimeters.
yeah,
There is
yeah,
no woke Canadian police. It is a lie. Um, However, the right wing militia aspect does not exist.
yeah. And I think it's kind of alarming too. That even like I think I might have said this earlier, but like, yeah, Trump has been bolstering these like far right militias. I think he even made a tweet where he's like, "Oh yeah, it's MAGA night at the White House," and after that, you saw like this explosion of like far right groups just like going to these protests and like agitating the protesters and
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it violent. Uh,
Yeah, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, which is
yeah,
a
yeah,
direct
and he
reference
called
from
them
a
thugs too.
1967 Republican mayor who said the exact same thing when he was cracking down on civil rights protesters.
Mm,
So it's so like it's not even like a dog whistle anymore. It's a call for white supremacist violence to suppress the uprising of the people.
yeah, yeah. Um, I do want to dive into like the rioting, the riots more because I've actually been surprised that like even I was surprised in my mom um because I do understand like there are some places that do get like looted and robbed that I guess you could say do have like a sentimental value to the community. So for example, my mom, she was saying that during the rioting, this funeral home got burnt down. And the thing about this funeral home, it's in the black community, and it's always served poor black families. So, like, say if like you didn't have enough money to bury, a family member, they would work with you. They would actually try to negotiate like certain terms and prices, and try to make it as affordable as possible for you to
Yeah.
bury your family member. And I was like, yeah, that's it's kind of fucked up, because it's like it's a staple in the community. Like, it's helping poor black families,
Mm-hmm.
honor their dead. But then again, it's like there's this other side to it where when we saw the Target get looted, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
looted the Target. Oh,
Oh,
that's
no.
terrible. And
Target.
then the CEO of Target comes out and they're like, well, we don't give a fuck about that store. We can easily like replace all the things that were in it. Like we just don't
Yeah,
care.
and Target had been working with the Minneapolis
Yeah.
police and
I think
had denied, being able to sell. Oh no, we're not going to sell you milk. We're not going to sell you anything
yeah,
to clear that
yeah.
tear gas out of your eyes. Go away. You know, we don't care
It's
about
like,
you.
what did
We
you
have a nice,
expect?
profitable, lucrative partnership with the Minneapolis police. Get out of
That's
here.
like that's like during the French Revolution when like the when like the poor were starving and like the queen's just like, oh fuck them, like we ain't gotta give them food. Like what do you expect? You're gonna get raided. Like there's gonna be anger.
Yeah, and when it comes to like these big corporations, and especially when it comes to like actively seizing police departments, I don't care.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
care
care.
either. Like I walked like me and my sister, we were in downtown and we did see like some of the stores they started boarding up to I guess protect the store. But we did also see some stores that did get broken into and like seeing guys come in and out like trying to fix it. And I was just kind of looking at it and I kind of had this like sort of nonchalant opinion about it. My sister was like, I don't think that stealing's right. And I was just like, in my mind, I'm just like, man, I mean, I don't care.
Yeah. Like, here's the thing: you don't want people to steal. Maybe give them more than $100,000 check and expect them to survive without a job for months on end.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's not more so with the protests, but it's more so with COVID. And I think it actually might fuel other like protests besides like Black Lives Matter. This might be another protest building up. Is there are supposed to be, I think, over like 100,000 people that are supposed to get evicted, that could be evicted, because like they can't pay rent, and it's like everything's building up. Like this is another thing that's been building up is like the idea of like landlords and I have to pay you rent so I can live here, and if I don't have
Mm-hmm.
the money to pay the rent then I get kicked out. And it's like, is that really fair? And yeah, we kind of see like rent strikes happening, like just like small little rent strikes, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really gonna pay you until you see that I'm struggling. You know, that, or like me and my roommate, we're struggling, we can't pay you, or me and my family, we're struggling, we can't pay you right now, can we pay
And
you at
the
a different
landlords
time?
easily could have collected their money had they showed a trace amount of compassion. And you know what?
Oh
We'll
yeah.
just wait until the epidemic's over to collect our money. That's fine. But they didn't. They're too entitled. They think that even if you're not having a stable job or a stable career, they should still get money.
Right. It's almost like that idea of I got mine, so fuck you. like
Like it's such a
like yeah,
toxic
I'm getting
mentality.
paid like yeah, I'm making money off of you. So it's like, well, fuck you if you're not gonna pay me. Like I'll just find somebody who can. That's often a thing that you see with people in power. It even
Yeah.
happened with like CEOs during worker strikes and shit. Like back in it kind of reminds me of the 1800s. It's so funny. Like what was it? What was a steel mill? Oh, it was like owned by Carnegie and fuck, I forgot. But I know there was a big strike there. And like the workers, they tried to like reason with him. And at one point, the like the boss who was in charge while Carnegie was away, he actually brought in like scabs. He brought in workers who were like, okay, listen, I'm going to mistreat you, but I will pay you.
And they're like,
So
oh, well, we had nothing, so it's fine.
right,
Please
it's like
mistreat
we ain't
us.
got a
Oh,
choice, so let's
yeah.
work. And like the
Mm-hmm.
workers that were there, they were frustrated, and it's like it's kind of the same thing. Like that kind of reminds me of like landlords in a way, where it's like, oh yeah, you can't pay your rent, well fuck you, I'll just kick you out, and we can find someone who they can pay the rent and they can deal with my bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Did you see that awful thing, what a trick for landlords to keep their security deposit, where they
Oh
would
no,
hide a nail in their shoe, and then when walking around, they would put pressure on the nail and then scrape the floor, and then while they were surveying the apartment, and then they would go back to the tenant. They'd be like, "Look at this giant scratch on my floor. How could you be so irresponsible? You don't get any security deposit back just because you fixed up your apartment." And they get to keep the money.
it's fucked up. That's real fucked up.
Should we make
But
ALAB a thing? All landlords are
A
bastards.
lab
Yeah.
good, good.
Oh, I just it's a dreadful
Uh,
institution. And I really do think that you could get much better services if you just took the money that was going towards landlords, reduce the rent, and have it just go to maintenance. Have the tenants own the buildings they live in and
mhm.
have all of that rent money go to just fixing up the apartments so everyone can live a nice, stable life. Because I don't think anyone would really take too much of an issue with, oh, you know what? The pipe's broken. Maybe we need some money to fix that. Okay. Or the heating's broken. I live in this apartment too. I want to have heating. So maybe we need some maintenance here,
Right.
just so the building can have good services. But the issue is that that's not how buildings work. They're just crumbling edifices that landlords can extract more and more from
Mhm.
until, that family's broken. Then, okay, off you go. Time to get in somebody who has a bit more money on them.
Yeah, it's like either the family's broken or the building's torn down. It's like those
Mm-hmm.
are it's like a lose. Well, for the landlord, it's kind of oh my god,
Win-win.
yeah, win-win. But for the tenants, it's lose-lose because it's like, okay, you can get to the point where shit, you get evicted and then you're potentially homeless, or the building gets torn down and yeah, you can be homeless, or you got to go to another building and like you don't know
The
if this
same
landlord
cycle
has to
starts all over again.
yeah, yeah. It's like a cycle of abuse. It's kind of telling. It's kind of telling. But we do have a question here from someone who's watching, and it says, "Do you think a revolution could happen in the U.S. before 2022?" Um, I feel like things are building up towards a revolution. It definitely feels like it, but there's also a part of me that kind of feels like everything's gonna fall apart. So like after the verdict from the George Floyd case is heard, like if the officer is found not guilty, sorry, not guilty, guilty. If the officer is found guilty, there is this thing where it could be that, oh yeah, we did it, we did it, we won, racism defeated. All right, let's move on. It happens almost every single time, like
Oh
every
no, there's
single
a Democrat in charge. We can all forget about politics now.
right.
We can go back to our brunch. Like those white ladies with their signs. They're like, if Donald Trump wasn't president, I'd be at brunch right now.
It's like I just like that's something that always like is on my mind. Like, okay, when this is all over, like, is there still gonna be that fire, or will like there, or like some, or like will it just lose, um, I guess fuel and just die out? Like
Yeah.
that's
At
something
this
that I always
moment,
think
it's
about.
hard to see how Trump could win. I
Yeah,
mean, his
yeah.
polling is so bad.
I
Like
mean,
he's
I just
headed
hope
to being
Kanye doesn't
defeated almost
win.
as badly as like, I don't know, Herbert Hoover.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is Joe Biden so uninspired.
Hmm.
Ugh.
Hmm.
The
I
best
think
thing we can
I don't
hope
even.
for.
I will be shocked if he gets a second term. I will be so shocked. I like if he wins and he gets a second term. I'm like, well, shit. This is interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think here's either he will die in office because he looks so unhealthy. Like I love how this is just a contest between the Democrats. Like, the Republicans like what worked for the Republicans is they nominated an old, almost dead white man to run. Maybe we could do the same.
Fight fire with fire.
Exactly, I know. And then they found their old white man, and he was, and even worse is that they had to copy even the worst aspects of Trump, like him being a rapist. The Democrats are like, okay, yep, we got that down with Joe Biden. Um,
Oh my god.
I
Yeah.
just,
I think what surprised me is my mom, because my mom's liberal, and I was telling her
yeah.
about Joe Biden. She's like, when Obama chose him as vice president, I was like, you're a fucking dumbass. I was like,
Oh,
what? What? No way. She was like, yeah, I always hated Joe Biden. And but yeah, that was one thing that surprised me. It's like, yeah, it's like Joe Biden's not an appealing person. Like I think like the epitome of like just his like nature is when he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
oh, I
That was
hated
the
that. I
biggest
hated that so much.
that was the biggest like that was just like the biggest I guess like just blow. I was because when I saw that, I was like, and you want me to vote for you because
I know, like Joe Biden, his whole thing is like, don't vote for me. That's his campaign strategy.
yeah.
And
One person
he is so lucky that Obama saved his campaign by encouraging all the other centrists to drop out just when they did.
yeah. I think one person in the chat they did bring up something interesting. They said we could bully Biden is trash, but we can bully Biden to leftist ideas. And what they
I
said is
think,
that you can see
yeah,
that the Green
Biden
Deal.
is a useless appeaser. It's his entire political career. He's been basically like a limp. There's only one thing he actually took a stand for, and that I kind of have a smidgen of respect, and that was gay marriage. Like
Yeah,
he came
yeah,
out on it before Obama in 2010 when it was not really very politically viable at all.
yeah.
But you
I feel
know,
like you could bully him. I don't. I feel like you could, but yeah,
the thing like with Joe Biden is that to me it's very important who his vice president is because
yeah, yeah. I feel like this whole thing though, where it's like, well, I want a woman of color as president. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool, but it's like, are you doing it out of how do I put this? Are you doing it just because, oh yeah, there's a vice president who's like a woman of color. Yay, we did it. Racism ended. Or like, are you doing it because this person is best qualified to be vice president? Like,
and she's also a woman of color, and
right,
isn't this a wonderful moment where we can, unlike the racists in the Republican Party, we see talent in all groups, whereas
right.
they only see talent in old white men or occasionally old white women.
Oh yeah, Pump Action Musket also brought something up too. He was like, how can we bully him? He's going to be surrounded by corporate stooges.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that like the way we bully Joe Biden is the same way we bully all those boring ass Democratic mayors. Like take to the street, make them fear for their jobs, and they will
Right.
bend.
That's like the one thing you attack. It's like that's something I've noticed is like once you start going after it's either their career or money, they start to change. Like it reminds me of the bus boycotts in Montgomery, how all these black people, they stopped taking the bus. They stopped taking the bus. They just walked to work, walked to school, walked home, wherever they had to go. They walked, and the bus company, they started losing money. And so
And they're
that's
like,
when they
oh
decided,
crap,
okay,
oh,
well,
more
I
money.
guess we can let them sit in the front of the bus as long as we're making money. Like, yeah, that it's like once you start attacking their pocket, or once you start attacking like their careers or whatever, things change. Things change.
They break and bend. It's true. Yeah. I wonder what that says about life under capitalism, that the only way to get people to do the right thing is to make them fear for their job.
or like fear that they'll start losing money out of their wallet. Like, oh shit, no, it's going away.
No, come back, please. I'm sorry. I'm woke now. Forgive me.
Yeah, this is I think that this is an interesting time. This is an interesting story arc in the story arc of Earth. Well, in the story arc of America, it's a pretty interesting arc, because it's like I don't think anybody could see this coming. I don't know. Like I feel like there are like a few people who could, but it's like this general explosion. Like I don't think people could see like people actually, well, taking over a police station. Like I don't think people could actually see that happening. I don't think people could see some Republicans even saying like, yeah, this has gone on far enough. Like,
yeah,
oh
like
shit,
even Mitch fucking McConnell. Like I was shook. I was so shook when he was like, yeah, we have a bit of a racism problem in America, you know.
Yeah,
We
it's like
stand with George Floyd. I'm like, whoa, what?
oh shit, plot twist.
Yeah.
Whoever is in charge of the simulation, like the simulation of Earth, man, you guys are starting to like go nuts with this shit. But yeah, like I don't think people really either saw like just like everybody just coming together in like one big moment, because like previous protests before, you always had this divide with the left where it was like, okay, yeah, what happened was bad, but so and so you did wrong, right? Versus this, you still have that sentiment,
angel,
right? You still got that sentiment, but it's like with this, it's different, because now you're starting to see more unity within the protest.
Yeah, and also like support for Black Lives Matter, it just skyrocketed. For the longest time, it was really unpopular, like most civil rights movements that are actually changing something. Most people didn't like it because they're like, oh no, they're race baiters, you know, they're too radical.
They don't actually care about black on black crime. Like, okay, so I'm from Chicago. I was born and raised here. Now, I do remember one protest. This is like the only one that I can remember. I'm pretty sure there were more that happened, but this is the one I can remember. It was like on the Dan Ryan Expressway. They blocked it off. Black Lives Matter, like all these like community, like I guess like activists, they were all on the highway and they were marching and they were chanting Black Lives Matter. I remember that. And then there's also like, I think what happens is that the media just doesn't cover it as much. So like you won't see a protest like that get big coverage versus one like what's happening right now. I just think like those protests don't get big coverage. But yes, there have been like protests against gun violence in the Black community where Black Lives Matter has shown up and they have said, yes, this is also a problem. But the thing is Black Lives Matter's focus is more so on police brutality more than it is black on black crime.
With quote unquote black on black crime, like we don't ever say white on white crime.
Yeah, we don't.
The thing is that in all communities, the people who are targeted by crime are usually people of the same race because of, you know, the segregated way that a lot of people live, because communities, people of different races, usually their acquaintances are mainly also of the same race. And so if there's a murder among them, who are they going to target? Well, someone in their circle. And their circle will usually be people that look like them.
Right. And it's like when you look at like white on white crime, the stats are they're literally like what? I think it's like 82%. They're not
Yeah,
that far. They're not that far behind. It's like you know you still have like a but we don't. But we don't say, oh yeah, look at white on white crime. It's 82%. They have a problem. They need like this needs to be solved. This needs to be fixed. It's like that pisses me
where
off
are the white
so
fathers?
much. Right. Where's the National Guard when you need them? Actually seen like that. That's another thing that has actually come out of this is the Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot, she recently, I think now they're starting to send in federal agents to Chicago, or at least I think like I think some type of military personnel to Chicago to like deal with the protests and like deal with everything. And it's like, this is something that Trump is asking for, like literally the beginning of his presidency. He's like, yeah, I want National Guard in Chicago to like deal with the violence. I'm like, don't you know that that's only going to bring it up more? Because it's like
exactly when when people are being thrown into unmarked vans and they lose all trust in the police, who are they going to turn to? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the gangs. Maybe they're like, okay, this is the only group that is going to maybe keep my family safe because obviously you guys aren't doing it.
I actually think because I think I did hear like gangs actually did start off as like somewhat of a like community policing thing. But of course,
Yes.
with the introduction of drugs and like guns,
maybe we can make a profit off of the community
Yeah.
we're supposed to protect. In many ways, I'm like, okay, I think the story of gangs is a cautionary tale for like when we're trying to imagine solutions beyond policing and think, okay, maybe we need police in communities. Maybe we need as an alternative, instead of having these police that live out of town, they live in the suburbs, they don't intimately stand the problems of these communities. Maybe we should just have grassroots movements to protect our communities ourselves with our own arms, that are willing to work with people in other communities as well, like what the Black Panthers were initially doing. But I think the story of gangs is a cautionary tale of, okay, but this is how we need to make sure that those same institutions don't fall into the same habit of corruption and brutality. That
it's like any system or any group that is founded, it can become corrupt. Like when we like back to unions, like a teachers union, like, yeah, I think that teachers deserve a union. They are workers, they tend to have problems. They're not really in a position of authority. I guess like if you're talking about a classroom, sure, they are the authority figure, but like in general, no, not really. But the problem is, it's like sometimes teachers unions can become abusive, and that's just like because, well, in my opinion, that's just the nature of the world. Like, you have these things set in place where, yeah, it can be good. The intention behind it can be good, but it all depends on the execution. Like, it just depends on the execution of it. Like, if we're talking about, because I do remember, I don't know if you follow this person too, but Rico Rants, he was kind of talking about it, that like with the police unions, he's like, the problem is the police unions, they don't have accountability. They don't have
none at all
sense of responsibility. So it's like when something like this happens with George Floyd, they kind of sit back and they're like, you know what? I mean, yeah, what we did was bad, but it's not like, it's not my problem. That's the officer's problem.
Or it's like, oh, well, we really need to, the real victim here is the officer. He feared for his life. And this other guy, look, he had a criminal record. What do you want us to do?
Right. Oh my God. I hate when people bring that up with George. Like, then, like, somebody even brought up, like, he had like a porn video up, and I'm like, how does that deserve him to get killed?
Yeah. Like, if people do porn, they deserve to die. Is that really what you believe? Because that is the implication.
Like, yeah, he did a porn video. Oh no, he has to die now. It's like, what? No.
And how Candace Owens was like, well, he didn't deserve to die, but he was no hero, blah, blah, blah. Here's all the horrible things that George Floyd was. She just seemed so much more pissed off by the fact that some people would, have empathy for the guy who got brutally murdered rather than the
murderer themselves. It's like, yeah, it's I think the funny thing about like people like Candace Owens, because they've actually showed up full force during these protests, is I think black people, they kind of have like this, not all black people of course, but
Mhm.
um black people like Candace Owens, they kind of have this sort of view where it's like, okay, we still have to like work within the system, or we at least have to see the system as being good. Like, even though sure black people are abused by the system, it's not as bad as like people think it is. Like how like some black people, they kind of have this idea where it's like, yeah, why are we always portraying ourselves as victims? Why can't we do what the like what white people do, or like the Asian community? And I always notice that it's always pointing towards the Asian community, and it's like, yeah, look at them, they're the model minority. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and the model minority is such a like
look
a
at them, they're
racist
a minority, they're
description.
doing good for themselves, you know.
Because before Asian people were the model minority, there was the yellow peril. They were the yellow horde that was going to
Hmm.
overwhelm Western
Hmm.
civilization with their birthrights. But some very clever sociologist in the 1960s, when he was doing a study on Asian people, and he was like, you know what, they tend to have a very, they tend to be very educated. They tend to have a much higher standard of living than these other minorities. Let's just make a distinction here between the model minority on one hand and the problem minority on the other. And it was such, I think that was such a coup for white supremacy. Like, it was really a brilliant strategy. Get the
Yeah,
minorities to fight each other, and then they won't notice that we
intra
have all the power.
racism, intra racism.
Mhm.
I'm actually glad I took sociology class. I actually like I'm starting to see that concept more and more. It's like you get the minorities to fight each other, and like not only that, you get minorities themselves to fight within themselves. So like you
Mhm.
have like there's still this thing, and it's kind of like it's not really, it's actually kind of major with black people, but it's not like, I guess, talked about colorism between black people. So this actually stems from slavery.
Lynn, you muted your mic. Okay. Um, there you go.
Hello, wait, hello. Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, you accidentally muted your mic halfway through your point.
Yeah, that 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 happens. I think it's mainly the cord, but it's good now.
Mm.
It's good now. But yeah, he was giving a speech to these slave owners, and basically one of his points was that you value the light skinned slave over the dark skinned slave. And
Mm.
his point was that all these like things that he was trying to instill would go on for generations. Like, I don't think he knew that slavery was going to end at some point, but let's just say if he did, I'm pretty sure that his intention would be, okay, even if slavery ends, all this stuff is still going to happen. And like you still see it where it's like, oh yeah, I think it was even noted in modeling with black people where light skinned models tend to get paid more than dark skinned models, and they tend to
Yeah.
get advertised more. And it's like, oh
Mhm.
my god, it's really interesting to see, but at the same time, it's disgusting because it's like, it's fucked.
Yeah. Um, it is like colorism is a real thing, and it has real impacts on people's lives. And it like it also manifests like my Vietnamese friend, talks about how it
Mhm.
manifests in Asian spaces as well. How they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, they
oh
definitely
yeah,
want to have their skin be as light as possible, and they're like, oh my goodness, she's so dark skinned, she
I
must
think
be so poor.
yeah, I think one of the effects of like these protests too is there was this Indian I think skin whitening cream. They actually changed their name, and it's like, I mean, you changed the name, but the product is still not good.
Yeah, like this is like a problematic product in and of itself. Why is there a thing where we like have to lighten our skins to be like, oh yeah,
Right.
this is beauty. This is what you want in life.
Oh yeah, I think that's I think we can kind of start getting to the failures of these protests, because I think the failures, they're not more on the protesters, they're more so
It's
on the
the
people.
companies. It's the
Right.
companies and the
Yeah.
politicians. They have, but I really think the companies.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, oh
well,
yeah, we're gonna hire like when the actors started, like the voice actors started stepping down from roles where they voice people of color, and they're like, I
I
want a
asked you
black
to do
person to,
this.
It's no one asked you. No one asked you to like step down. I mean, we didn't even like nobody cared until like what's the name of the voice actress who first did it? I think
It
she
was the
first.
one who voiced Cleveland, wasn't it?
No, that came a little later. It was one of the characters on Big Mouth. Um,
Oh, I hate that
and
show's
she
look.
stepped down and she was like, "Yeah, I don't feel comfortable voicing this role." And it's like, well, no one asked you to step down. And I think
Yeah.
another failure is like people still don't get it. So like you'll have, and I like you'll usually see this. It's like on you'll have people who they do know what's going on, they do know how it impacts people, and they do use their voices or their platforms to to like inform why what's going on needs to change.
Yeah.
Then you have people who are actively against that. So they'll argue. You'll have the Candace Owenses, you know, the like the usual conservative pundits who are like, well,
Michael
it's not really a
Tracy.
problem because XYZ also happens to XYZ. You
Hmm.
know. Then you have the
Some
people
white
who
people are victimized by police brutality.
uh,
But
and
like, look at the statistics. It's disproportionately black
yeah,
people, and white people are underrepresented when it comes to police
mhm.
brutality.
It's
White
like
people
yeah,
make up about like 72% of the population, but only 50% of police brutality
I
cases.
think it's like I think it's around like 63. I don't
It
because I do
depends if
see
you count
yeah,
white Hispanic.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Then it goes up. Um, but yeah, it's like 63, 75%. But like when you look at it, it's like, yeah, they're overrepresented. Like, okay, if you're looking at the base number, like say if you go to like what's the name of that site that they usually get from Stastia.
Statistica.
Like if you yeah, Statistica, there you go. If you go on that site and you look at they have the base numbers. Yeah, it looks like more white people are killed than black people. But when you go beyond that and you start looking at per capita and you look at like I guess a percentage of like white, black, Hispanic, Asian, indigenous, other, like well, other being like the cases where we don't really know. Um, yeah, you start to see that black people are actually overrepresented. And you know, then they'll say, "Oh yeah, it's because well, black people tend to commit more crimes, so of course they're going to be more victims." And it's like, "Oh my god, no, 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 no!" It's like it's like it's just really like you have these people in the middle of like, all of this who they either a they don't care or b they just don't want to care. Um, so like you have these people who are like you tell them yeah, black people are overrepresented in police killings and it's like well it's not happening to me so I don't care or oh it's not that big of a deal I don't know why it's a big deal like you said like then they might even tie into the group that's like actively against it where they'll say well I don't really care it's not that big of a deal besides more white people get shot by the cops and it's like whoo.
I mean, you'd think that more white people would get shot by the police because white people are the overwhelming
Majority
majority.
yeah
Like
yeah.
if
Like
and
if
it's
black people are the majority, I would expect more black people to get shot because they're the majority of the population. Like,
mhm. But
oh god,
it's just such a misunderstanding of statistics.
yeah.
And it's the same thing where they're like, "Oh, look at the black crime rate." Well, okay, why is the crime there in the first place? Why is the crime rate that high? And their answer is usually, "Oh, it's just genetics." You know, it's just the way they are. You know, it can't be helped. You know, or this is my favorite. Oh, it's the black family. You know, something's wrong
Mm,
there.
And then when you start pointing out like all, because like I actually think like the dude mentioned this in like the one of the debates I had. He was like, yeah, it's like you have a lack of the Y chromosome in these neighborhoods, and it's like
Oh my god.
he really said that. He literally said he was like, there's a lack of the Y chromosome, so then you start having problems, and it's like. Well, why do you think the problems exist, dummy? It's because of like all the shit that's happened to like these groups of people where like you do have the war on drugs, you do have like the building of private prisons, and then you know you have like police brutality. It's like all these problems. It's not the people's fault. It's not the victim's fault. It's the perpetrator's fault. Like that's
But they're so unused to ever being able to see, maybe it's not the people who are being victimized that are to blame. Maybe we could have some blame on the victim. But no, our culture is fascinated with the idea that everything is the fault of the person who complained about it or the person who is suffering. Like,
Yeah.
look at how like women get treated when they come forward about like rape accusations. Or like, it's like, oh, well, she was a slut. Like, I literally saw in the New York Post this thing where they're like, woman who was murdered was into BDSM and kinky sex. I'm like, so she deserved to die because
And
of
then the
this?
justification's like, yeah, she's getting tortured, so of course she dies. Like, no, not at all. Or like you'll have a case where with trans people being killed, and they're like, yeah, well, this trans person was a prostitute, so they deserve to die. Like, what?
Why even bring it up? Like, it matters not a
Yeah,
whit.
yeah.
Like, there's nothing more shameful about sex work than any other kind of work. It's just another kind of way of making money in a system which encourages us to make money by selling our bodies. They're just selling their body in a different way than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but no, people are like, oh, there's something immoral about sex work. Like, how could you sell your body?
Like,
Even
it's
though
just
that's what you do all the time.
like this puritanic view. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, your body's holy. Don't do that. Don't show off, sweetie. No. Like,
Your body is a temple. Cover up.
Your body is a temple. Worship it. Like, ugh.
Actually, I don't mind the last
about
one,
my body, but I don't see it as a temple. It's just like, it's just me.
Mm-hmm. Like, it may look good, it may look bad, but it's mine to do with what I want.
Right. I guess we could say another.
Like, that was one reaction that was bad about, like, another thing I thought was like all of those actors like coming forward and doing like cringy things like, oh yeah, here I'm gonna Madonna's adopted black son will now perform a dance.
He was dancing to They Don't Really Care About Us by Michael Jackson. That shit was when I saw that, I was like, no, this is not what you're supposed to do. No. And I feel like sometimes they, like, in their mind, they feel like, yeah, it's good. Like, the intention, the execution, it's perfect. But it's like, when you go out there and you do it, it's like, no one's asking you to do this. No one wants you to do this.
And that wasn't even the worst one. Remember that white woman who did like an interpretive dance about her reaction to the death of George Floyd?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think one thing that, like, because it's something that I've been pointing out a lot is like with the protests, I don't think that you should settle for like legislation. So like, I get like legislation is important, right? So like, what I can point to is like the civil rights movement, where after the Civil Rights Act of '64 and like all the other ones to come after that, it's kind of like they gave up in a sense. Like, they kind of just like slowed down a bit. They're like, well, yeah, we got
what we wanted.
Right. And it's like, well, we got what we wanted, so what are we supposed to do now? And it's like, the funny thing is, like, even when you look at like the Civil Rights Act, like the Voting Rights Act and stuff, women of color still couldn't vote until like 1972. Like, they still had to fight to vote. And it's like, that's like, that's something you don't learn in history class, for one. But for two, it's like, it kind of shows like the fight isn't over. Like, if there's still a problem that exists, you still have to fight. You don't just lay down the moment you get, well, where you want. I mean, what you want.
Well, we're done, you know, just take me. It's fine. We're done. We got our legislation.
I think that's one of the criticisms that like a lot of leftists have of the civil rights movement. It's like they kind of settle for like the liberal solution, where it's like, oh yeah, well, you know, legislation, boom, you got the Civil Rights Act. Yeah, it's over now. You can go home. You can stop protesting.
Racism is over.
Right. Racism's over, everybody. We did it. Yay.
And of course, there were still people who, you know, wanted more than the Civil Rights Act and kept fighting, like the Black Panthers. But then, well, COINTELPRO. And
the U.S. government, they're just like, well, we gave you what you want. Shut the fuck up. Like, go home.
I feel like the protests are good, but I feel like it needs to like turn into like organizations that exist afterwards
Mhm.
and also provide for their community, knowing that the state probably will not necessarily keep its end of the deal just based on
Right, right.
experience. You know, we need to run our own soup kitchens. We need to pave our own roads because the state is not going to suddenly grow a heart and think, you know what, maybe we should care about marginalized communities. Maybe I
Right.
was wrong this whole time.
Right. And that's like I hate that like idea where it's like, after protests or like after like a movement, people are just like, yeah, all of a sudden the state's gonna care about, like, no, the state doesn't care. The state only cares because one, you caused unrest.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to end the unrest as quickly as they possibly can. um that's like the main reason, and I think that was even the reason with the civil rights movement, where it's like you have like all these like not just black people but even white people were involved in the civil rights movement, and
Yeah.
like Hispanic people and Asian people and even indigenous Native American. You have all these people coming
Mm-hmm.
together and they're like, well, yeah, we want rights. So you're causing unrest. You're going against the status quo. And what the status quo wants is for you to stop as soon as possible. This is why you have Donald Trump sending in like federal police or the National Guard to put an end to it, because it's like, oh yeah, we want you to stop as soon as possible, and we will use force if needed. I think it's also interesting, like the whole like thing with the fireworks. Remember that, where like fireworks are going off and people are complaining about it, and some people noted that like, what if it's the police that's like setting off fireworks and like making it seem like there's this violent protest where there's gunshots everywhere? Because I remember when that first happened, like the first day, where it was just
Mm-hmm.
stop. I thought it was shooting, and I was like, oh shit, wow, they're really shooting out there. But then I heard the fizzle that happens like when fireworks, like after a firework is off, it's like a fizzle.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, wait,
I was
that's what you're
like,
doing.
wait,
We see
those
you.
are fireworks. Because I remember my mom, because she always does this. I mean, we stay on the second floor, but still, she wants to make sure I'm safe. Like, if there are gunshots, she'll tell me to stay out the window. So I was sitting out of the window, like I was out of the way of the window. But once I heard that fizzle, I'm like, yeah, let me get back in the window. I was like, yeah, those are fireworks, mom. They're not gunshots, and it was happening constantly happening, and people pointed to like, yeah, the police since the 1950s, as early as the 1950s in the U.S., have been using fireworks as a means of, I guess, psychological warfare. So basically,
Mm.
what that's supposed to do is like you hear these fireworks and you think, oh shit, they got guns, they're shooting, everything's going off. And what it does is, one, it causes it disturbs sleep. Sleep is like very important. Um so if you hear fireworks like at fucking 12 in the morning, you're really not going to go to sleep. You're not going to get adequate enough sleep. So then you'll be tired. And the second thing is, it's supposed to give a sense of like, it's supposed to make you scared, because it's like, oh yeah, all these gunshots are going off. What if I go to a
What if
protest
I'm
and I get shot?
next? Yeah.
Right. Right. And it's like it's really fucked up. And I think even like there have been some police parades. So like you'll have like all these cop cars just driving through neighborhoods like early in the morning with their sirens blaring. And
Yeah.
that's just like, oh my god, it just shows you like the police will go through any length to just like fuck with you. Like
It's
they'll go
shock
through
and
any
awe.
length.
They're trying to
Yeah.
scare you into submission.
Yeah. Um hmm. Let's see.
Another, actually, that kind of segues into like, remember the police were like doing a lot of like, did you see a lot of those videos on Twitter where the police were actually smashing stores and
Yes.
smashing
Yes.
windows and
Yeah.
looting and
And they were blaming it on the protesters, and they were like, "Oh, those are officers, those are protesters." Like, man, no.
we see you.
Like, if
Um,
like even like in some cases where officers were smashing, they were trying to disguise themselves as protesters. Like, even officers who, like, I guess they weren't in on what was happening, they were like, "Oh wait, no, I recognize you, Robert. Is that you? Are you smashing stores? What?" Like, and it's like, oh no, the like the cat is out the bag. Like, yeah, like we know who you are, thanks to like some officer who's like, shit, I didn't know we were doing this. Like, And
Yeah,
sometimes
which
they're not even dressed as protesters. Like they're in like full riot gear,
they'll just
smashing
be
shit.
like, oh, no one's watching. We can just say that it was the
Mm-hmm.
protesters. The truth is whatever we want it to be.
Right, right. Because I actually did experience that when I was like talking about it. Like, where did this happen? I think it was on Instagram. Because I was like talking about Instagram, and one of
Hmm.
my followers, they were like, "Oh no, they're not police. Those are actual protesters." And I'm like, "Do you really think that?" Like,
Yeah, and that's where I was like, okay, there. Another problem with the movement is that there were some people who would like uncritically approve of like violence against like family stores when those auctions
hmm
were actually being orchestrated or like flat out done by police.
yeah,
And that's a problem for two reasons. One, people are going to resent that, things in their community are being destroyed. And two, you're praising violence being executed against a community, not being
hmm
done to liberate it. Like that just seemed very bad. And it
right,
was exactly what the police were looking for when they did that. So,
yeah. Um, I think another thing that just came to mind that I kind of wanted to talk about.
mhm.
Fuck, what was it? Damn it. Ah, never mind. Do you have anything that else you want to like talk about with this that we can segue into again? Because
Oh, yeah, sure. Um, like, what did you think of all of the like label changes that were going on? Like
oh
all of those
yeah,
companies are like, oh
uh,
yeah, we hear your concerns, and
hmm
now we're going to be changing our labels.
it was kind of funny because I did see some like not as necessary, but it kind of like I kind of had this mad reaction to it. I know my
Mm,
mom was pretty upset about the Aunt Jemima one. Because the I guess the woman that Aunt Jemima was based off of, she was a black woman, she was a slave, and even the like woman's like I guess descendants, she's I don't think she has a headstone on her grave. Um,
hmm.
like Quaker Oats didn't even fucking like give the family money to actually do that. Like the family
Hey,
just
that would have probably been a better gesture than removing the Aunt Jemima thing. Just like give them
oh
money to
yeah,
buy
just
her a headstone.
right. Yeah, I like my mom was kind of explaining it in the sense that like it's kind of a part of black people's history in America. So like basically how she was a slave and how I guess she like had this platform that she had and like I think the woman that the like the first woman who was modeled for Aunt Jemima, she did actually use her platform to discuss civil rights. And it's like, do you want to take that legacy away from that person? Like, this is their only, I guess, lasting image in the world. Like, to be a label for like a fucking brand or whatever. Like, do you want to take that away? And it's like, while I do see the point, it's like, shit. It's like, do we really need to remember her through like a brand? Because honestly, to be honest with you, I didn't even know who like actually was the real Aunt Jemima
I
until
did not know
recently.
that either until people were like, "Oh my goodness, how could you take away this real legacy? Aunt Jemima was the most important thing to me ever."
Yeah, I had no idea until like people, started freaking out and they were starting to talk about like the first woman who was Aunt Jemima. Like I had no idea who that was. So it's like, do we really learn about these people who are modeled like for brands? Do we learn about them through the brand
Hmm.
itself, or do we learn them through our own research and through like our own discovery? The Land O'Lakes one, I was like, yeah, all you need is a fucking package with a lake. I didn't see why the Native American woman was like significant on a package. I was just like, even when I was a kid, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, why is this woman here? I mean, the lake would just be fine. Like,
No, there must be the woman.
like, yeah, she's a Native American. You guys are removing her. That's wrong. And it's like, what? No, it's called Land O'Lakes. Like, the background is literally a big ass lake. That works. Like, it's Land O'Lakes. Like, come on.
Not
Um,
land of random Native American women.
like God. But
Mm.
yeah, Aunt Jemima. I think they even said Mrs. Buttersworth. I don't really get that one at all. I'm like, I never thought that Mrs. Buttersworth had a problem. I just saw it as a random pancake lady. Um, but yeah, I think they did say that Mrs. Buttersworth also addressed some problems. I know the biggest of the two were Land O'Lakes and Aunt Jemima, but yeah. I mean, I can kind of see some people's points like, yeah, there's a whole legacy behind it, but it's like, we could easily learn this through like, I guess like, if it's talked about more, like if her legacy is presented more to, I guess, the public, like, um, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. But that also ties into the statues being removed, because we've seen a
the Columbus statues being removed. Thank goodness. I hate Christopher Columbus with a passion. He sucked.
Yeah, what I remember in U.S. history when we learned about Christopher Columbus and like what he did, I literally had like a physical reaction. I was like, what? I'm like,
and this is the guy that we're supposed to be celebrating here.
I was like, even like when I was young, I'm like, okay, I kind of feel like you guys aren't telling the full story. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I knew that there was some hidden shit, but I didn't think it was this bad. Like, he's like literally cutting off like their hands if they don't tell him where the gold is. Like, he's like, these are the most ignorant people.
Yeah, like even to the Spanish colonists, like he cut off this woman's nose because she insulted him.
Ooh, God, that's just
I know, it's so unpleasant, and Columbus was just a completely unpleasant person.
Yeah, and then it's like because the thing is like, yeah, they're ignorant. Like, dude, they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That's why you're like, where's the gold? They're like, gold? What's that? What you have on your face? Like, oh, that? Oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah, I don't know.
This is just some stuff we wear. That's not that important.
Right,
Get over it.
These are accessories, sir. We don't know what you want with them.
Like, it's literally like if you met a whole group of other people for the first time and they didn't even speak your language at all, and then they looked at your earrings like really intently and they're like,
right. It's like the best way to describe Christopher Columbus coming to like oh my god, coming to like the, I guess like the Caribbean or the West Indies, whatever you want to call it. It's like, say if like somebody comes in your house and they're like, all right, this is my house now, and like they see like you have a nice coffee maker and they're like, ooh, where did you get that from? And like you don't know why they have like such a deep, like, I guess a deep liking towards your coffee maker, and you're just like, well, I don't know what you want with it, and I don't think I should tell you where I got it from. Like, what do you want with this? And they're like, I want to know where the coffee maker's from, and they just start beating you up over the coffee maker, and you're like, I don't know where I got it from. It's like, that's what that reminds me of. It's just like if somebody came in your house and started like touching your property and shit, and just being like, oh yeah, ooh, I like this, I like that, a little bit. And it's like,
yeah, would you treat them friendly? Would you like want to be around them?
Right. And like they start beating you up and like threatening you and shit. It's like,
this would be like a home invasion.
I don't think that's nice. And then like he was taking like them back to Europe as slaves, and it's like, they fucked up shit. Why do we have statues celebrating him? And it's like with the Confederate soldiers and generals.
Oh yeah, like that. I am so glad that like I think it's like finally Mississippi got rid of the Confederate flag that was part of their state flag.
Yeah.
In like 2020, that's so embarrassing. Like they were clinging on to that memory of a state that lasted less than 5 years.
Rhode Island's name change, wasn't it like Rhode Island something plantations?
And the Paradise Plantations or something like that.
I was like, what the fuck? That's the full name of the state? I thought it was just.
I never even knew that though.
I'm like, this is some embarrassing shit. Like, just imagine your state is like Rhode Island and you don't know the full name, and then the full name comes out as like plantations in it, and you're like, what? But yeah, the Paradise Plantations too. Yeah. Also, why would you make a plantation a paradise? Why would you want a vacation?
Well, you see, it's like heaven. Everything is in its perfect place.
It's like oh boy. Like the whole point, like I love how they're like, we can learn about history through these statues. It's like,
but you just tell a false version of history. That's what you do.
You think they were put up to honor history? Like, okay, a statue was put up to honor a person. Like we know this. Like I'm from Chicago. We have like say for example the Michael Jordan statue. Do you think they
Yeah.
put it up so we can know the history of Michael Jordan, like his whole history, or just honor his time as a Chicago Bull? Like which one? It's the same thing with the Confederate flag, not Confederate
Mm-hmm.
flag, the Confederate statues where okay, we didn't put these up to honor the history of the Civil War. Like no, it's
They
to
weren't even
honor the
erected
people.
after the Civil War. They were erected during the Civil Rights era by
Yeah.
racists who were trying to make a point.
Like that's the whole idea. It's like, oh yeah, they want to let black people know that yeah, you're still beneath us, guys. Don't get it twisted. You know, you guys might be starting to get rights, but oh yeah, you guys are still beneath us. It's like that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole idea, and it's like it's funny how like Americans don't get that. Like
Yeah.
they're like it's history, and it's
It's
like
our
okay,
culture.
in
That
Germany
Robert E. Lee statue was my
in
culture, and
Germany,
now
do
it's
we have
gone.
statues like in Germany? Are there statues of fucking Rommel or Hitler or
Yeah. Oh
fucking
no, Germany seems to remember the history of the Holocaust
uh
just fine without
yeah.
like without swastikas on every corner.
You could easily learn about this shit in the museum. Like they literally have Civil War. There's like a whole Civil War museum. Like you mean to tell me I can learn history better from a statue than a fucking museum that's
Yeah.
revolved around the subject? Like, ugh.
Is it just supposed to be like this? Like, what is the statue even supposed to tell you? At one time, there were people who liked terrible people. We knew that already.
There were at one time there were people who wanted to keep doing terrible things to certain people, so that way we have to honor them to let you guys know that they did terrible things to terrible people.
Yeah, like it's so transparent. The excuse to don't change things. Don't let things make things stay the way they are forever.
It's like
Don't
whole
challenge my
tradition.
reality because I like it
Like,
the way things are.
yeah, it's like a whole idea of like keeping tradition. It ties back to that, like, oh yeah, um, I don't want things to change. I'm scared of change. Like things are gonna change, and like over the years, like okay, say if we erected a statue of like back then, just say like in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
say if there was a statue erected of Hitler, let's just say hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think that over time people start learning about the things he did? Don't you think people would have a problem with that in like a different time period where okay, we've grown far from that idea. We've grown far from like not too far because it still happens, but we've grown far
Mm-hmm.
from the idea of anti-Semitism and like, oh, Jewish people are bad, right?
Yeah.
It's unpopular. People are gonna look at that and they're gonna be like, yeah, shit, we want to tear it down. I think there was also this case in Britain, in the UK rather, where there was a statue of I think it was like this dude. He was like a trader, and he was involved in the slave trade, I think. And his statue got taken down and got thrown in the I think it was a river or a lake. I'm not sure. And like a lot of people were mad about that one, and I'm like,
I'm like, oh no, not the slave trader statue. We
not
loved
that
it.
statue. It was so beautiful. Like he did horrible shit. Like
But no, we had to remember, we
we
had
gotta
to.
remember. We gotta remember like the slave trade and like slavery. And it's like, yeah, I can learn that in a museum just
The
fine or a
funniest
history
thing
book.
is every other time of day, right wingers are like, forget about slavery. It didn't.
Yeah.
It
Oh
doesn't
my
matter.
god. Yes. Yes. I was just gonna point that out. It's like they're like, yeah, forget about slavery. Slavery's in the past. Why are you still mad about it? It was
No, don't take down the statues to slavery. No, you have to remember. I want to remember, please.
like I've never learned anything from a statue. Like if I walk past a statue, like because I know that there was a Christopher Columbus statue here in Chicago. I don't know if it's still standing. I don't think it is, but I don't know for sure. But
It
I
would
know
be
like
nice if it
when I
wasn't.
was on the bus and we rode past it, I would just look at it. I would just be like, all right, that's interesting. I used to think it was George Washington, but until
Oh.
I was like, that's Columbus? What? Like my mind was blown. I was like, oh
Mhm.
shit. Like it's like you don't think of anything really like okay if you're looking at a statue you might think that looks pretty good, you know, it looks nice, but you don't think oh shit yeah the history behind like what happened here and like the statues here, it's just it's so brilliant. Like no,
Mhm.
like I get that there are statues to commemorate events, yeah, we can talk about like those monuments and structures which do commemorate some sort of event. But no, usually statues are put up to honor the person or the individuals involved. So like, for example, that Iwo Jima statue where like the American soldiers like trying to like put up the flag, like
Yeah.
that's to honor like the soldiers during World War II in that specific battle, right? And then yeah, you can also say that that dives into the history of like World War II and stuff. But when we're talking about a statue of Robert E. Lee, I am pretty sure you don't learn about the history of the Confederacy through Robert E. Lee. Like it's just to honor that man. Why? Because he fought to preserve slavery. And it's like, do you really want a statue up of someone who fought to preserve that system? Like, no.
Yeah, and honestly, scratch those people, and a lot of them really do.
Yeah. My favorite statue is the Lincoln Sather. Sather said my favorite is the Lincoln shoe shine statue.
Like my favorite, like most like problematic statue that's probably deserves to be taken down is the one where like there's like this freed slave and Lincoln is like putting his hand on his head.
Oh yeah.
And the slave is like, and he's like, he's in the chains and Lincoln's just like petting his head like he's some sort of pet. And I'm like, what is this?
Like, well, this was funded by the black people in the community. And it's like, well, I think they got cheated out of their fucking money. Like,
yeah, I know. I
like,
bet what they really wanted was a statue of Lincoln and the slave like holding hands, standing side by side as equals.
Or the statue could not even have Lincoln in it. It could just
at
be
all.
like,
Yeah, just have it. Just have a freed slave.
Canes. Right.
Yeah, because
like that would be a way better statue just
than like oh, I have freed you.
Because like people are like, yeah, the angle that the photo's taken looks like Lincoln's petting the slave, but really it's like Lincoln has his hand out. I'm like, that's still not good. Like,
yeah. Why would you design a statue where from some angles it looks like you're treating this person as like a human pet?
Right. Lincoln's just like, there, it's okay. I have freed you. You can go now.
It's like so bad.
Yeah, it's but yeah, like the whole point on the statues though, it's like I don't think you learn history from statues. I mean, do I think that certain statues or monuments they can inspire you to learn more? Yeah. But it's the whole like optics thing. So it's like if you have a statue up of a person who fought to uphold a system that oppresses people, is that really a statue you want up? Like, is that a statue that you still want to see like erected and like standing? And it's like, no, in my opinion, no, I don't think you want to see a statue like that at all. Like I think
no.
I'm
Jono, scratch those people. Are you an Antifa cat girl? He's on to me. He's on to me.
Yeah.
Oh no. Watch, I'll probably like somewhere in my closet deep down, I can probably dig out the
You probably have cat ears lying about somewhere.
Anyway, yeah, the statues do not teach you about history. Like you don't look at something and like all of a sudden like some sort of like, I don't know, Chuck Ash flash happens and you like understand all of history immediately. No. You know, do have Civil War museums, do have people learn about history because history is important, but history shouldn't just be honoring all of the horrible people throughout history forever.
Right. And it's like, there's also the point that like some conservatives bring away. It's like, well, you should take down every statue because there's something problematic about it. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's take down the Statue of Liberty, guys. Let's do it.
Yeah. And ironically, just I'll get the dynamite.
Yeah, just blow it up. It's like, yeah, why? Because it's problematic. You said it was problematic. You said,
yeah, I mean, we're just acting on your words here.
And I'm like, I could guarantee you, like, they say that, and it's like, just wait, one statue, like, say if the Statue of Liberty got, like, fucking taken down, they would probably fucking cry. It's like, yeah.
Like, literally, these are the sorts of people where, like, their black neighbors could be shot, and they'd be like, well, they were no angel. But then like a fucking statue gets taken down, they're like, oh, this is the worst day of my life.
Or like a black person, like their black neighbors, like getting arrested for nothing, and they're like, or like they were being pulled out their house. Because I do remember this one situation. This guy was talking about. He was like, "Yeah, my apartment got raided because the landlord's son was in some shit, but they took all of us out, and it was like the FBI there and everything." And he was like, "I could see my white neighbors, and their faces were like, I knew they were bad." Like,
yeah. Do you remember that woman? What was her name? Oh, do you remember that woman who like freaked out about gay marriage when it was legalized? It was like
oh my
this
god,
white woman, and she did this horrible phone video where she was recording and posting it to Facebook, and she was like, "This is what God wants, not Muhammad." they like she literally cried over gay marriage being legalized. Like, not tears of joy, like tears of sadness. She was so upset that other people could have the right to do something that she had.
oh god. And then like remember the whole slippery slopes with that too, where it's like first they want to marry same sex, next they'll be marrying animals. Like, what? No.
Okay. Like, where did you even get these conclusions?
But I think another thing that we could talk about is like because when Colin Kaepernick, when he started kneeling,
he was protesting peacefully,
right? He had
and then as soon as the conservatives were like saw the actual riots, they're like, why didn't anyone try protesting peacefully? Did you forget the entire like years that you were bullying this guy for daring to say maybe America's not perfect, maybe racism is real?
He's a horrible quarterback anyway. I'm like, oh my god, fuck you guys. Like, but now we're starting to see more like of these athletes who are starting to come out more about their views on it, and they're starting to partake in kneeling more. And I kind of look at it as a moment of both triumph and hypocrisy, because it's like, okay, it's triumph because yeah, I like to see like people who like are athletes. Like athletes tend to get fucking like, in my opinion, I know that they make millions, but like they are still abused under the system, because
yeah,
it's like,
especially like college athletes, they get so fucking screwed.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you could be a rich. I think like it's like only a small percentage of NBA players, when they retire, they still like hold like it's only a small percent that actually like when they retire they're still rich. So like not every NBA athlete that retires is a Michael Jordan or is a LeBron James. Like, no.
Which is what I wish like the white people who are like, well, look at the NBA. It's majority black. Racism is over.
Look at the NBA. It's all black almost. Yay, racism's over, guys. We did it. It's like, no, it's not. Because like some of these players, they retire, and whether it's because of like, because the way I like to think of it is like, okay, the NBA is mostly black, and most of the players do come from like underprivileged backgrounds. They have never seen millions of dollars. They never had this moment where they have like a large sum of money and they have to learn, oh, well, you gotta, learn how to manage it. Like they don't get that. And it's like that's the main reason why they end up broke afterwards, is because mismanagement of like the money that they were gaining. Like they'll have debt. They like lose property, and sometimes it can not only break them, but it can break their family, it can break their friends, and it's really fucked up. And it's like, I'm glad I'm starting to see athletes, because whenever an athlete steps up, it always pisses me off when they step up. They're all like, you'll have this like fucking ultra conservative dude who's like, yeah, well, maybe you should just shut up and throw a ball, or like shut up and dribble, or like just shut up and do what you do. Like nobody wants to hear your opinion. And it's like, no, you don't do that. Like they're citizens just like you and me.
Yeah, what they're basically saying is, you exist for my entertainment. That is all your body is good for.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my god. I also love how they're pointing back to like Muhammad Ali and like Jim Brown, and like when all the like black athletes got together, they were like talking about like issues that impacted the black community at the time. and they like have this big meeting. And I'm like, I love how they're pointing that out, because it's like, yeah, it's still happening, where like you'll have these like, not just black athletes anymore, but it's really like all across, like, I think the big four leagues, where you're starting to have this conversation amongst athletes where it's like, okay, well, what if I'm next? You know, because like, yeah, you have like money, you know, but you can still get hurt. Like, I think there has been a case with like this NBA player. They were kind of talking about like their experience with getting pulled over and like how they felt scared. And, you know, even though you know, like the officer might be like, "Oh, I'm a big fan. Oh, I know you." Blah 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 blah. They can still get abused by the police. Like it just doesn't matter. So
Yeah, Oprah gets followed around in stores all the time by those racist
and
clerks.
she's
They're
like mega rich. Like
I know she's like a little billionaire, and they'll still follow her around like, "Ma'am, do you think you can really afford that?"
yeah. Do you think you can afford that purse? Do you think you can afford that dress? Like she's fucking Oprah. Like she could afford my college tuition. Like
Exactly. She could probably afford to buy the whole store.
yeah. It's like it doesn't matter. And it's like that's something else that I want to point out is like I see this thing being taught around more like black capitalism, where it's like the idea that black people need to work in the same system. Like, oh yeah, we need black businesses and black banks and black owned stores and
Yeah, let's just
all
go
these
back
things.
to Black Wall Street.
Right. And it's like you don't really need that, because that can still be abused. And in some cases it is. Like you'll have a black business where it's like, oh yeah, how much for this shirt? And it's like just a basic t-shirt. $40.
Oh,
Where if you go to like a fucking Walmart, it's like the same shirt could be the same color, 10, like maybe like let's say $5 or $10. It's like these like it can still be abused, and like that's the problem. Like you know, like you like sure, it's kind of points back to the same thing with like hire more black police officers or
yeah, I was
hire
just
more
gonna
black
say that.
attorneys.
It's
Like
this representation over any sort of systemic change.
yeah, it's like ah, god damn, it's like it doesn't lead to anything. It just keeps the system in place. I mean,
Mhm.
sure, it may look like at first, yeah, we're actually making a difference, guys, but no, you're still keeping the same system intact. And like in some cases, you know, you'll have a black person who's just like, say if it's like a black mechanic, because I remember my brother-in-law was talking about it. He was like, yeah, I went to this like black-owned auto shop, and I was asking him how much would it cost to like change the rims on my tires, and he was like, they were gonna charge me $90. When I went to this other mechanic, they actually charged me only 40 to change the rims, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of fucked up. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah, they're trying to rip them off.
right. And it's like it kind of reminds me of like what some black people say. They're like, it'll be your own people, and I'm like, yeah, sometimes it is your own people. Like you, but some people don't get that. They just kind of like look from the outside and they're like, yeah, we need to hire more black people, and it's like, no, that's the wrong way of going about it. Like, no,
We already had a black president. Did he
yeah,
fix racism? We've already had representation at the highest echelons of power. And while I definitely say Obama is a marked improvement over the past like dozen
oh yeah,
presidents,
yeah.
um, did
He still did some problematic things like
mhm.
drone. Like I think he had the then he doesn't he have the most drone strikes out of like
Yeah,
um
well, it's hard to compare because Trump actually banned the government from recording civilian casualties in drone strikes.
uh,
So we don't know. Technically, Donald Trump may have more drone strike casualties, but since it's literally illegal, we don't know.
oh god. But not only that, but like all the Wall Street bailouts and like
Yeah.
yeah, he like I
Persecution of the
kind of hate how like
whistleblowers.
black people, the thing is like with these protests, black people always try to find a solution within the system, like the current system. Like I
Mm,
understand working within the system, right? Because the idea is, hey, if you want to change, you go from within, right?
yeah.
And it's like, well, sometimes that's not good because you kind of get accommodated to the system and then you grow comfortable with it, or you can even become a part of it. and then you yourself
Yeah,
can
the
become
system
abusive.
doesn't change. You don't change the system changes you.
Right. And it's like, uh, like I remember this one dude during the Ferguson protest. He's like, you know what we need to do? If you guys want to change, just vote, just vote, just go to polls, and like run for office if you need to, and also establish more black businesses. And it's like, no, I actually said it like that when I first heard it. I was like, no, and
I mean, it's been heard, it's been done. Like, it's
yeah,
been done since the 60s, and the situation has stayed the same.
right.
I
It's like you
agree
keep
that,
going back
like,
to the
it's
same
not that we
thing.
shouldn't engage in systems at all. I don't think that's helpful, but
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
we need to, if there is a bit of change we can affect from within, there also needs to be a ton of change we do from without. We can work
Mhm.
outside these systems and build better ones. We
Right,
do not need to be tied to them forever.
right. And I also like kind of see it as like because like black people also like during these times they're like, what would Obama do? And it's like, stop holding Obama as if he's some god. Like, he's not a god. Like he still did shit during his presidency that that kept the system going. Like he didn't change anything really. Like um
Affordable Care Act was nice. There were
yeah, it
things
was.
that Obama did that were good, like including trans
Yeah, I'm
health
not
care
saying
and
like his
affordable care
presidency
act.
was like terrible. Like, oh yeah, I'm not like the ultra conservative where it's like, Obama's presidency was bad. He was the antichrist. Like, like no, he did do good things. The Affordable Care Act was nice. What else? What else? He did kind of bring the economy back to like some sort of level of stability.
Hmm.
Um,
Gay
uh,
marriage.
yeah, gay marriage was the biggest one. But then again, he also did things that were not that good. And it's like,
Yeah, exactly. You have to take both. And so I'm
um,
seeing like a lot of people in the comments are asking for my YouTube channel, and I actually have to go now because I'm making dinner for my family. But I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I just every time I talk to you, Lynn, I just am like I'm just struck by how productive it is, how
yeah, we have
energizing it
way
is
more
to talk to you, and how much I learn.
yeah, I'm actually going to put your channel link in the chat. So do wait, and copy and paste. Come on. Okay, so yeah, this is Lapis's channel. You guys can go watch. Listen, Lapis is very good creator. I
Well,
know
let's
that
not get carried away. I could be more
no,
productive.
I do know that you recently been doing like a lot of chats with like friends or like people that you associate with, and I do like that aspect.
Mm.
Um, you also do videos where like you kind of talk about like different topics on a like individual basis.
Hmm.
I remember the first video I watched of yours was about the midterms, and I was like, that's when like I was like, oh wow, yeah, I really like this. It was it was a really good video. So yeah, definitely check Lapis out. She's definitely a very good content creator in terms of on the left side of YouTube.
Aw, thanks.
Ye-
That's so sweet. Um, do you want me to repost this video on my channel, or should I just like try
oh yeah,
promoting this one
you
more?
can.
Okay, great. Yeah,
No, you
because
can repost if you want
I
to.
want like more of my followers. I mean, granted, you have like 6 times the followers I do, but I want whatever followers I have to see your stuff because it's great. It's so educational, and you put it in such like a straightforward way, but also one that really connects and that actually uses actual data to reinforce the points.
Thank you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, definitely go check out Lapis. Definitely. But yeah, I don't want to keep you um waiting any longer. So yeah, any like outro that you want to give before we go or
Hmm. Um, all I'll say is keep fighting, keep protesting, being loud, being radical is the way we get change, is the way we
Mhm.
make the world a better place. And I am just so impressed about what I've seen, even in the midst of a pandemic, all of the people rising up and fighting in America. It's just been blown away. So thanks, you guys. And thanks for having me on the channel, Lynn. It's been a blast.
Yes, thanks for being here. Happy to have you. And all right, well, I guess that'll be the in for me too here. So thank you guys for watching. This is actually, I think, the biggest audience I've actually had in a while. I think the highest we got here was 16, so that's good. But once again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Lapis, for being here to talk, and I will see you guys in the next one. So bye.
Ta ta for now.